All right. Good evening, Facebook family. Y'all know what time it is. Well, it's not the regular 9 o'clock time. We're starting early tonight. We're doing a special Memorial Day Pajama Praise segment. And tonight we're going to remember those musicians and choir directors and singers that blessed our souls and our hearts as we came along in the ministry. Some of you are saved today because you possibly heard that hot song that somebody sang, and when they opened the doors to the church, you came down and gave your hand to the Lord. And so tonight we're going to remember those who paved the way for us. Tonight we have some special guests with us. We have Reverend Joe Foster, longtime pastor, musician, historian. And then we have Mr. Sam Britt, the Dallas chapter of the Gospel Music Workshop of America representative, a longtime Dallas native. Asked him if he would come and share with us tonight because he's been around about 150 to 175 years. And so he knows a lot of people in the city of Dallas. And I asked him if he would come and share with us some of his memories of some of the people that he knew that impacted his life. And so tonight we're going to share. As we go this evening, I want you to type in some of the people that you remember that served at your church or around the cities that you live in that made an impact that you remember that came your way. And so tonight is a night of memories, of remembering. Before we get started tonight, I'm going to ask Pastor Foster if he will give us a word of prayer.
Heavenly Father, we're thankful to you for this golden opportunity that we now enjoy. We thank you for the rain that's falling upon the earth to bring growth to our flowers, to our food and our grass, our trees. Lord, we just thank you for all you've done. Thank you for the memories of those who have gone on. We pray that as we remember them, we pray that we would always keep them in our hearts and in our minds. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that prayer, Pastor Foster. Listen, y'all, thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. I see you there with us. Reverend Jonathan Easley from Bethany Baptist Church. One of our young ministers there, Sister Naomi Hill. One of my faithful choir members, great supporters. Thank you, Sister Naomi Hill, for joining us each week for Pajama Praise. Sister Diane Murray from St. John Church Unleashed. Thank you for joining us. Sister Sheila Bryce, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Sister Lisa Rogers, thank you. Sister Bertha Johnson, I see you there. And I know so many others are on with us tonight. And so again, y'all, we are remembering musicians and choir directors and singers. And so if you have anybody you want to commemorate or remember, type their name in the comments section and we will call their name. Reverend Foster, we're going to start with you. Tell us about some of the people that you wanted to mention tonight.
Well, let me just say that there are, my mind to call back a lot of names, but particularly those that were instrumental in my music ministry. That would be number one would be Dr. Bobby Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
And I have so many memories about him and things that he did with us and how we traveled together, ate together, slept together, and made trips all throughout the United States together.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is Mrs. Doris Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks don't know her. Doris was very quiet, but she was our next door neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up playing on her piano and borrowing her church music, and then we played together at Como First Baptist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There is let's see, my good friend Pina Smith.
Uh-huh.
Amen. Uh, we met when we were both in high school. He was
Okay.
at Pearl and I was at Kirkpatrick.
Mm-hmm.
He's a year younger than I am, and he was the musician for the district association. And when I attended the meeting, I met him. And from that day on, 1963, 63, 64, we became good friends and remained so until his untimely death.
Mm-hmm.
And one good thing about uh, between Pinus and Dr. Baylor, when I would go to the workshop, I could always, if I said to them, I'm going, they would make known to me, well, you stay with us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we didn't travel together, but we stayed together. So whenever I had a chance, whenever I had a chance to
Mm-hmm.
workshop, I didn't go as often as you guys did, but I went a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Mrs. Zerlene Wright.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unless you came from Sticktown, you wouldn't know her.
Okay.
Uh, Zerlene played at the North Ebenezer Baptist Church where her husband was a pastor. And so she played there even after his death,
Okay.
till
Okay.
her death. Uh, Zerlene had a good, strong soprano voice.
Mm-hmm.
She would beat that piano and playing every hymn in the original key. Uh,
Okay.
it was written in if it was written in A, she played it in
I
A.
did agree. Uh-huh.
And let's see, that's four,
So,
5.
Pastor, let me interject something right here. Dr. Kimberly Scales, who's a member over at Fellowship Baptist Church, she wrote in, she called her Dorothy Flakes, but I knew her as Dorothy Dilworth,
Yeah, yeah,
Richard Hawkins, and Calvin Brown.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All of them were my friends. We
Uh-huh.
got along. Dorothy and I played way before she got the fellowship when she played at New Hope
Mm-hmm.
from the north side, an old black upright piano. They
Mm-hmm.
still have that piano sitting down in the basement. But
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
that was one good sounding piano. Whew, that girl would play that thing, and that thing would be rocking.
Listen, we got some other guests on with us. We have Reverend Charles Webb on with us. Sam, Lena Calvin Marshall said that you're her close buddy.
Yeah,
She said
Yes,
hello.
I am. We went to UNT together.
yeah,
Okay, okay. Yeah, Lena's a great singer, and I think she directs the choir too. So
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
y'all for joining us. Sister Sheila Bryce said window loving. Yeah. Sam, did you record with us when we did the DFW album?
No, I didn't. I
Okay.
didn't.
Yeah, we recorded one of Wendell's song. He replayed it, the song "No Place to Run, No Place to Hide." Yeah,
Okay.
and so we're moving along. And so Pastor Bradley, I saw Patrick Bradley's name flashed up there. Pastor Foster, we're gonna come back to you. Sam,
yeah.
who were some of the people that impacted you?
Well, I guess I would have to start with people at my uh, home churches. I was blessed to have two home churches. So my parents went to different churches, so I was between the two, Griggs Chapel Baptist Church and St. John Baptist Church. And at Griggs Chapel, it was Sister Olivia Skinner. She was the minister of music, or back then they called her the main musician. And she worked with the National Baptist Convention of America men's department as well. And in St. John, it was Mrs. Lena Lou Estelle and Sister Valley Joe Estelle. They were sister-in-laws. They were married to two brothers, and Reverend Estelle, before Pastor Wilson was the pastor at St. John. And Miss Lena Lou was the minister of music, and Miss Valley Joe was the pianist, and also Miss Archie played the pipe organ. Growing up with me at St. John, they had a pipe organ. They never had a Hammond B3 until later years. So Sister Archie played, Sister Collins, her name was Collins too. She played the pipe organ. You could see her over there working that organ. So, and then later, Sister Sarita Lattimore replaced Sister Lena Lou Estelle when she passed. So those ladies is probably where I got my music foundation. People at church now laugh at me because I know all the hymns in the hymn book, but that's because of them and Pastor Bob Wilson. He took us to the hymn book every Sunday. So I was mentioning it to Pastor Foster, Reverend Foster, that growing up, I was angry because I wanted to sing all the songs on the radio. But he would take us to page 142, page 256. Back then, I even knew when he said the page, I knew what hymn it was. But I appreciate it now because I know all 4 verses of the hymns because of that. So those were my most fondest memories of musicians in Dallas. But there are quite a few others.
And so I have a question for both of you, Pastor Foster and Sam. So in the early days of church, so the hymns were the foundations, the hymns, the anthems, and the spirituals. And so when it came down to the gospels and the contemporaries, did y'all get much of that in the church, or was it basically centered around the hymns, the anthems, and the spirituals?
Well, in my day, it was all of that. We did the anthem, we did the morning hymn, and then we would do not spiritual, the 2 gospels. It could be one gospel number and a spiritual number. But we did them all. We did it all. The scripture required us to do that, and then I learned the hymn, like Brother Britt was saying, from Dr. O.L. Higman, whereas we had all of that at Antioch.
And I guess I had the same. St. John was more. St. John was very conservative. So at St. John, we had hymns, anthems, spirituals. If it was gospel, it was traditional gospel. You didn't do any clapping. You didn't do any rocking. You stood up there and you sung. And sometimes we had the music in front of us, and we learned how to read the dots. And Griggs Chapel was more liberated. They would do anthems and more traditional music. Griggs Chapel was a traditional music church. So I had the best of both worlds, really. I mean, they would jazz the hymns up, where St. John would do the hymns just like they were written. But Griggs, we were more liberated. So, like I said, I had the best of both worlds.
Let me ask Sam this question. Did when you all moved from the old location, did you take that pipe with you?
No, that pipe organ was at the church that we bought. It was Hillcrest Baptist Church.
Oh, it was there.
That pipe organ was there. It was a pipe organ at the old St. John. And now that you asked that, I don't remember what happened to that pipe organ that was at the old St. John, but it was. And I say they didn't move it, and maybe they did, and I was so young, I don't, because I was probably 10 or 11. So if I didn't hear anybody talking about it, but I think the pipe, and I say that because the pipe organ at the new church is white, and the pipe organ at the old church was brown. So, but you know, they could have had it refurbished, and I just missed it. But I don't think they moved it because the pipes were already around the choir stand, which they're still there at the Mercedes location.
So for those of you that are just joining us tonight we're remembering some of the musicians, choir directors, and singers that have passed away, and there are people that impacted our lives. There are people that inspired us. And tonight on Memorial Day, we are remembering them. Some of the names I want to mention quickly, and these are people that have recently passed away that were musicians and singers and choir directors. I want to mention Mr. Travis Williams, who recently passed away. He was at Rising Star Baptist Church. Sister Deborah Calhoun, one of the musicians, local musicians here. I'm not sure which church she was at, but her son, Carl Calhoun, one of the great instrumentalists, he was at Holy Tabernacle Church of God in Christ. Mr. J.C. Carter was at Mount Olive Baptist Church. Sister Patricia Elaine Maxey, the last church that I knew that she played at was First Methodist in Kennedale. And then Sister Billy Roberts, who was at St. Luke United Methodist Community Church and Bethany Baptist Church, where I served. Sister and some of the Brother Byron Orr, who was a percussionist, he recently passed away within the last year. Sister Wanda Eddington, a longtime educator and music director at Pleasant Mount Gilead Baptist Church. And so we're going to get back to Reverend Foster, back to you. Let's go back to your list.
And I'll give you all the ones that I was with the, oh yeah, one more. I got one more. Mrs. Nellie Ruth Lewis.
Miss Nellie Ruth Lewis? Okay.
Yeah.
What church is she at?
She was the director of music at the Morning Chapel, United Methodist, one of the Methodist churches, downtown Fort Worth. And she also directed the music department at Kirkpatrick when I was in school.
Okay.
And we had one of the best a cappella choirs in the city.
Okay.
And we would sing a spiritual, I mean deep spiritual. That was our plan. That was our way of making known our good music, was singing. Small choir, but we sung some great music. Thank them all. And one thing about Miss Lewis, I never forget this. I think it was The Lord Is My Light had just come out, and she was teaching it to her choir, but she said she didn't have the necessary chords and movements in the song to make it sound good. So she called me and she said, "Joe, come over and help me with this." And when I got to the house, I said, "Oh, so now the teachers are going to be taught by the students." We died laughing, talk about that, and we carried that. She carried that with her to her grave. She passed away, I think, last year. Yeah.
Sam, can you see the comment section?
Yes. Yeah, I can. If I put yes.
Because some of the people mentioned some of the people you may have on your list. Who else do you have on your list?
I have From Golden Gate Baptist Church, I have Sister Odessa Jackson. She was the minister of music for years as I was growing up as a child. Michael Terrell was there with her.
Okay.
And then Billy Wedgeworth took over.
That's right.
After Sister Jackson passed. And then, of course, and then, of course, we Michael Ford. Michael Ford was known throughout the United States. So Michael Ford, he was at Pilgrim Rest, and he was at Zion Hill Missionary Baptist Church when I first met him. When I was at Griggs Chapel, he was at Zion Hill, and then he went to Pilgrim Rest. And then I have Mr. Darrell Detman, who was at St. John as probably when I was a child. Miss Lena Lou Estelle left and went to get her doctorate degree, I believe, or a master's. She got some advanced degree and she left. And while she was gone, Darrell Detman took over the music as minister of music at St. John, and he was a music teacher at Madison High School as well. Okay. Then I have Doris Jackson. She was at Truly, but she started off at Reverend Fleming's church, Freedom Baptist Church. She was there for years, and then she went to Truly. And of course, Charles Mitchell, who was at, he started off at St. Luke, then he was at Mount Pisgah until his death. He and us, you couldn't say, I can't say Charles without saying Linda. Charles and Linda were, and she's still the minister of music at Mount Pisgah. And then Jerry Mitchell, who was at First Baptist Hamilton Park. He was an organist like none other. And Sister Ola Reagan, who was at Eastgate, her husband was a pastor. She just passed this year. Yeah. And
organ over there.
Yes, she would make that organ talk. And then at Pilgrim Rest, it was Brother Anthony Robinson. He was at Pilgrim Rest when I went as the minister of music. Okay. And before him, and then Michael Ford was there before him. And then Dr. L.O. Avery, who the mill course is named after, he was at Pilgrim Rest as well. So Brother Professor William Bryant, he was at Greater El Bethel.
Right.
Reverend Foster, you going to say something?
Well, I was just quoting the names that you were quoting, Dr. Bryant, Avery. I remember all those names when I was growing up. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. They were before me. And although William Bryant just passed in the last couple of months. And I just had another name on my mind and it left me. But anyway, that's Sister Ollie Scruggs, she was the minister of music at Good Street when I was a child. Yeah. And I think it's a choir named after her now. I think back then they used to name the choirs after the pastor or the musicians or what have you. So that's kind of my general list. And of course it's others.
So Charles, Reverend Charles Webb said Maurice Lindsay. That's the name.
That's the name that's the name that came to mind while I was talking. He was at First Baptist Hampton Park with Ruth and Pat way back in the day.
And then Patrice Williams, Rayford said James Pleasant. Patrice Williams said Paul Bigham, Michael Terrell, Archie Perry, Richard Hawkins, Charles Peter Baker, Helen Mundy, and Michelle Fisher. Today is Michelle Fisher's birthday.
It sure is. It came up on my Facebook notifications. It sure is.
You know, everybody has just so many fond memories of. Y'all called her Michelle. I called her Avis. That's what we called her in high school. And so she was my ride home from choir rehearsal. Miss Kelly would keep us till about 6 or 7 for rehearsal. And so Avis drove a station wagon. And so half the community was in the choir. And so we get in the back of the station wagon and ride home with Avis from rehearsal.
Wow.
And then she lived around the corner from me in Highland Hills, and I walk around the corner and play on her piano sometimes. And so, man, we just have so many fond memories of Avis Michelle Fisher. And so we're still remembering those who had crossed our path. Um, as a matter of fact, if y'all hang with us till 9 o'clock, Sister Crystal Jordan is going to be on, and she's going to talk about her mother, Miss Jawanda Jordan, who was a true trailblazer in the city of Dallas, in the state of Texas, and nationally, because she was the president of one of the national organizations. We're going to remember her. And so here's some names for you, Pastor Foster. Miss Wilbur Burton Allen,
Yes, because I was going to call her name.
Zion Baptist Church. Miss Annie Alexander, Zion Rest Baptist Church. Johnny Anderson, True Vine Baptist Church. We already mentioned Charles Peter Baker. Did you know Peter Baker, Sam?
Yes, I remember his name.
Uh-huh.
I do remember his name.
Thelma Ballas at St. Stephen's Baptist Church. Did you know her, Reverend Foster?
Thelma Bonner?
Ballas, that's the way they have it written here.
No, I'm not familiar with her.
What about Mr. Roby L. Barber, Mount Olive Baptist Church?
Roby was not a musician. He was one of the directors that Mr. Rivers would allow to direct.
Okay.
And one of the key singers there. You know, okay, back to St. Stephen. Say that name again.
Thelma Ballas.
Thelma Baylor, that was her name.
Okay.
Yeah, she was dark skinned lady, but she played well, and she had a great relationship with her choir. And there was some good singing folks.
Well, what about Miss Odessa Barker? You remember her? She was at Johnson Chapel AME.
No.
And so I'm gonna kind of move through the names a little fast. Miss Maxine Barron, Carter Metropolitan, Theodore Bass, Baker Chapel, Harlene Beal. She was a principal and a musician. She was attended East St. Paul, but I think at one time she played at Zion.
Mount Zion.
Mount Zion.
Yeah.
Mr. Dexter Bell, who was a bass player.
Yeah.
Miss Billingsley. What was Miss Billingsley's first name?
Can't think of it.
All right, Miss Billingsley. Everybody from the north side knew Miss Billingsley. Miss Melba Booker.
That's Dr. Baylor's sister.
Right. Miss Navon Boyd. They said she was at Community Christian. Odie Bowman. You remember Odie Bowman? Odie kind of resembled Richard Hawkins a little bit and played the piano like Richard. And so let me give y'all a little background on where I got these names from. So in 2009, I was instrumental in bringing some musicians and choir directors and singers together, and we did a concert. And the title of it was "We Won't Forget You," and this was to commemorate a lot of these musicians and singers and choir directors that had passed away. And so we did a concert. We had 105 voice choir we put together. We did the concert at Fellowship Baptist Church one Sunday night. And some of the people that was actually in the planning of that concert then they are now deceased. And I mean, that's just the way time and life and what God allowed, you know. And so on this Memorial Day, we are remembering even some of them. But we did that concert back in 2009. And we raised from that concert, I think we raised about $1,100. And from that concert, we actually, that is how the Black Musicians Association of Tarrant County began, from that concert, from
Yeah.
us bringing the musicians together. And so we started a scholarship fund for that organization from that concert. And so even tonight, you know, as we remember some of the musicians, Mr. Bobby Brooks, who's the organist at Mount Pisgah in Fort Worth, Mr. Calvin Brown, who was one of the directors at Fellowship Baptist Church, and then my middle school music teacher and also neighbor is Carol Jean Wines Brown.
Right.
Uh, she took me to my first Margaret Road workshop. I had never heard of Margaret Road. And she was telling me about it. I said, well, I don't know. I don't have a way. She said, well, you come around here. You can ride with me. And so that's how I got acquainted with Margaret Road. And that's when I became acquainted, Sam, with Linda and Charles Mitchell. Because they were playing for Margaret Road, Linda and Charles, Michael Terrell, Doris Jackson. Those are some of the Dallas musicians. Dwight Taylor, Alvin Pope, Ernestine Green. Those were the people playing for Margaret back then when she came and did her workshops here. Mr. Tommy Brown from Harvey Avenue. Some of you may remember him. Mr. Otis Lloyd. That's right, Reverend Charles. Mr. Otis Lloyd. And he was very active in the workshop, wasn't he, Sam?
Yes, he was.
Mm-hmm.
And also Ken Henderson, he was active in the workshop as well. And he was active in the Fort Worth chapter. And he just passed this year.
Really?
And David, yeah, he passed this year right during the snowstorm, because I went to his funeral. It was the Saturday after all the snow ended.
Oh man, you're kidding. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So this is the story, Sam. Kenneth Henderson, Ms. Jawanda Jordan, Michael Terrell, and has the South Dallas Concert Choir. Ken, yeah.
Henderson?
Not Ken Henderson, the other Ken.
Oh, Ken Baker.
Ken Rowe. No, Ken Rowe.
Oh, Ken Rowe. Yeah, Ken Rowe has the it's the senior citizens choir. I can't think of the correct name of it. Yeah.
And so I used to do a hymn fest every year at Macedonia, and those musicians would come and be a part of the hymn fest. And I have a picture with Miss Jordan in it and Ken Henderson. But I did not know he had passed away.
Yes, he passed.
Wow.
Back in February.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it was another very popular musician in Dallas in the 80s and early 90s. David Ellis, he was at
Community First.
Community First. That's when Community First they were rocking.
Oh yeah.
And a young man named Reggie was the director back then, and I don't think I ever knew Reggie's last name, but Community First, that's the first Black church I knew in Dallas that had two locations. They were on Ramona for 8 o'clock at their old building, and then they went on to Westmoreland for their second service. So
Philip Stewart, who recorded with us in the with the DFW Mass Choir. He was one of the Dallas musicians that was really good. He passed away. Um, and so many others. And we won't be able to get through all of the names tonight, but we're going to try to hit as many as we can. Um, Mrs. Julia Ford Bullock. Did you know her, Reverend Foster?
Who?
Julia Ford Bullock. She was supposed to have been in Morning Chapel.
No.
Miss W.L. Brown, Reverend Brown's wife,
Oh yes. Oh yes.
of Macedonia.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Paul Burrows, who was at Paradise. Miss Sarah Walker would talk about him all the time. Did you know him?
I was looking away.
Paul Burrows. He was a musician at
Not,
Paradise.
Burroughs. He's a little
Burrows.
bit older. I think
What'd
he's a
you
little
say?
bit older than I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Miss Amanda Byers at New Bethel? Did you know her?
Byers.
Uh-huh.
And I think I remember her. She was a lady. She had a stroke, and it affected her left arm, but she played the piano well with one hand.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, she played the piano well.
Um, Reverend Charles Webb mentioned Douglas Miller, who passed away this year, right?
That's true. Yes.
And I know that he was at when I know he was at St. Andrew's Church of God in Christ in Denton.
And yeah, and then he was at a Church of God in Christ on True Way on Polk across from Old Concord.
Okay, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Glenn, James and Myra Harris.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Greater St. Mark.
Sheila. Yeah, Greater St. Mark. They sang. I used to love when they would come to in our church, or when we would go over there, and when we closing service, you didn't want to leave until you got the benediction, because
Okay.
they were going to sing farewell.
Okay.
Yeah, James
How did
was
that
starting
go?
out. Huh?
How did that go?
Farewell, farewell, farewell. If I never the uh, typical gospel beat, never see you anymore. And just repeat that.
So you know what? When I heard that song, when I heard it after a preacher would preach his first sermon. They would say, "Preach the word, preach the word." And so, yeah,
Yeah,
I heard,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
they did farewell. James would start it, and Myra, his wife, would end it. And Lord, when they got through with that, you listen, you wanted to hear the benediction, because it was certainly hot. Then also too, I think Lena mentioned it here on the comment section. Miss Wilma Oliver. Now Wilma directed Zion, choir number 1, I believe, and they sang all of the hymns and anthems, and most of them they did a cappella.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, yeah, she was a wonderful director and very sweet person.
So
Yeah,
Charles Webb mentioned Paul Brookins.
Yes, Paul Brookins. He was a musician in Dallas in the 70s and 80s. No, Charles is too young to know some of these people, but he's a church baby, so. And we stayed in church.
Brother Willie Adams mentioned Chris Johnson.
Yes, Chris Johnson.
Willie, what church?
Chris Johnson just passed this year. Chris passed this year as well. I can't remember where. Chris might have played at Community First, but if Willie's still on, he'll put in the comments.
Okay.
Now, I know later in years after Pastor Lott went to Greater Peoples, he played at Greater Peoples.
Chris did? Did he have a couple?
He was awesome. No, I don't think he did.
Okay. Wow, okay. Yeah, you know, if you grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, man, because I know when I played at Rising Star, man, we were in Dallas. Oh my God, Reverend Davis preached for everybody over there. And so even when I was at Worth Hill, Reverend Wells, we went to Dallas a lot. We go to Reverend Phillips' church, H.J. Johnson's church. What was the church? There was a church that the pastor had the same name as the church. Oh man, it's off of what's the name of the street that the famous chicken place is on?
What thing? Rudy's? Lancaster Road? Lancaster Road?
Yeah, Lancaster Road, yeah. So he had
the pastor had the same name? I don't know who that was.
Yeah, the name of the church was just like his name, but we fellowship with them. And so I got to meet quite a few of the Dallas musicians from going to Dallas so much. So here's the name, Reverend Foster. I know you would know, Sister Maggie Carey.
Maggie Carey.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the wife of Reverend Smith Carey. Rising Star.
Mm-hmm.
She played. I'm trying to think it was either an old Baldwin or Wurlitzer organ, big one.
Okay.
Years until they bought the new Hammond.
Okay.
Yeah. But, I did not really know her because I was still kind of young. Even though I'm older now, I was quite young when a lot of them were in place.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mrs. Fannie Mae Prince at Mount Pisgah. She played an old Baldwin, which back in the day, they sold a lot of those to the black churches. Couldn't afford to buy a pipe. And she played that until they bought the new one, and they bought the new one after her death.
Okay.
Yeah. She was.
So, Sam, we were trying to decide. Reverend Fox had mentioned Miss Prince, and you said that her husband was the pastor at Mount Pisgah.
I believe he was the pastor at Mount Pisgah. And
so there was a Reverend Prince at Pilgrim Rest too, right?
Yes. GB Prince was there before Pastor Wallace.
Yeah.
Okay, were they related, the Princes in Fort Worth?
Not that I know. Now the Princes, it's a big family of Princes, but I came to Pilgrim Rest in '92, and he passed in the '80s, so I would not have known that because it wasn't much Prince fellowship once I came.
Okay. And so as we continue down the road, Mr. Tyrone Clemens, who was a great choir director here in the city, man, he could really pull those choirs together. Mr. Edward Cole, who played at Pleasant Mount Gilead for a long time, he was an educator. Then I think he eventually played at Mayfield Baptist Church. Mr. Johnny Cole, Reverend Foster, you knew Johnny Cole?
Yeah, I remember Johnny. Yeah, Johnny was with the Ottoman singers, and he played
Uh-huh.
in
I
Dallas.
remember them.
Yeah, at
Mhm.
oh,
Mount Horror.
Mount
Was it Mount
Horeb. Yeah,
Horror?
Mount
Uh-huh.
Horeb. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
He played at Mount
Yep.
Horeb until he passed away, and
And Sam,
that
that's
was
the other
his
church
death
that
was untimely.
that's the other church that Miss Doris
Doris. Yes,
played at.
and I see Chris Brenham is on, and his mom Pam Brenham played in Mount Horror as well.
Mm.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
all right. I didn't know Chris's mother was a musician.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay,
Yep.
yeah. And so, Mr. Johnny Cole, Miss Beatrice Cook, who played at Galilee Baptist Church down on Stall Cup. There was Miss Tessie Curtis, who was at Carter Metropolitan.
Ottoman. Is
Mhm.
Tessie gone?
I
Because
don't know.
after she went off to school, she never did come back, and I think she went to school in Houston, and I ran into her in Huntsville,
Mhm.
Texas, but I didn't know she.
Oh, Glenn,
Uh-huh.
Charles Webb just made me know who the church you're talking about. You're talking about Carver Heights, and the pastor was named Tyler Carter.
Okay, okay.
What was and the church is on Ledbetter. It's a
Yeah,
big, but like
bigger.
when I was young, that
Yeah,
was a big. I mean, I thought that was a monstrosity of a church.
Right.
And the pastor. Matter of fact, that's the church that Antioch was birthed out of. Paul Jackson's church.
Oh, okay, okay.
Uh-huh.
Um, Sister Sheila Bryce mentions Sister Freddie Livingston from Friendship, Veronica
yeah.
Livingston's mother. And then
Uh-huh.
James Rice mentioned Artie Haynes from Love Sanctuary. She was a longtime organist over at Love Sanctuary. Yeah, y'all keep those names coming. We want to try to remember as many people as we can tonight. Miss Claretta Daniels, Freedom Baptist Church. Miss Dorothea Davis from Rising Star, that was Reverend Davis's sister-in-law. Mr. Ralph Davis from Mount Calvary Baptist Church. So when I went to Wyatt, Ralph was a senior, and so man, we had a bunch of comedians in the choir. Avis, Ralph Davis, Purdy Hollins. Oh my God. I mean, they would give Miss Kelly the blues. they would give her the blues. They were comedians, but all of them were super talented, and she put up with her, but they could really sing and play and all of that. Miss Dorothy Dilworth, we already mentioned her from Fellowship. Miss Helen Dixon, Ebenezer Baptist Church.
Yeah.
You knew her, Reverend Foster?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I knew Miss Dixon. Yes.
Mr. Nathan Duffy, Mount Sinai Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Mr. Carl Earl, who was the piano tuner at Mount Zion. I don't know if he ever played at Mount Zion, but I know he went there. Mr. Clarence Eggleston. Sam, did you know Clarence Eggleston?
No, sir. I
Uh,
didn't.
I know that Dr. Bradley knew. Clarence Eggleston wrote one of the famous gospel songs we do now. Oh man, what is it? He later moved to California, but he was from Fort Worth.
Oh, okay. No.
Who's this song? It'll come to me. Carl Evans wrote in the comment section, Miss Eureka Hamilton, Miss Eureka Hamilton, that was her name. Carl, her name was Eureka Hamilton. Cupid Williams, and Miss Cupid was in from Comos. The last church I know she played at was the AME church at Johnson Chapel.
Johnson Chapel, right?
And she was also a barber, Miss Cupid Williams.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
A lot of folk would know her Cupid Butler. I
Her
don't know
name
if that was her maiden name or what. Cupid Butler Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And Glenn Chalk. Oh, go on. I'm sorry.
I'm still trying to remember that song Clarence Eggleston wrote because everybody knows it. Running for
Charles
Jesus.
Webb.
I think he's the one who wrote "I've been running for Jesus."
I don't even know that. I mean, I might know it when I hear it.
I've been running for Jesus.
Running, and I'm not tired yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Charles Webb just made me think of, and we were really talking about musicians. He didn't play, but he was a director extraordinaire. Carl Garrett from Lawrence Missionary. He was Pastor Garrett's son, and he used to direct their choir.
That's right. Carl Evans, Curtis Cole, Pentecostal Church of God in Christ. But see, I remember Curtis from Church of the Living God. Oh man, yeah. Now Curtis Cole was a awesome organist. Yeah, I remember Curtis. Mrs. Let's see, Howard Epps. You remember Howard Epps, Reverend Foster?
Yeah. He was a character. You talking about a joke. He could tell a joke. he was a joke.
Mr. Howard Epps. I'm gonna go ahead and add Sister Crystal Jordan into the stream. Hey, Crystal, how's it going? We're gonna bring Sister Crystal in around 9 o'clock. We're gonna talk about her mom, Sister Jawanda Jordan. But Howard Epps, and you know what? While you were talking about Howard Epps, you made me think about what's his name from Como, not Roosevelt Thompson, but it'll come to me in a minute. Another musician from Como, Joel Irving. I didn't know him. Did you know him, Reverend Foster?
No, I'm trying to see the name.
What about Miss Vendetta Forrest?
No. Where was she?
They said she was at First St. John.
What was her name?
Vendetta Forrest. Yeah, I don't remember her. Reverend Charles Webb said Ernest Gray from Union Baptist Church. Did you know him, Sam?
Who?
Ernest Gray from Union Baptist Church.
Yes, I did know him. Pastor Dorsey.
Okay.
I did know Ernest Gray, and also we haven't mentioned any singers, but at St. John there was a contralto that I loved to hear sing all my life, and that was Miss John Archer Sanders. She was a great singer. Even as a little kid, I was mesmerized with her voice.
And I know they used to do a hymn, where they did a hymn.
Yes. Nam did. Nam used to do that. Yes.
You already, did you know Miss Goodspeed, Miss Gertrude Goodspeed, Reverend Foster?
Gertrude Goodspeed. The name rings a bell. Yes, school teacher and principal.
Right.
At Como.
Right. Well, when I was at Pilgrim Valley, she played for the Sunday school. She was a Sunday school.
Yeah. And she did sing at Rising Star. She played for the Sunday school.
All right, Dr. Kim Scales, we won't forget Finest Smith. We can never forget Finest Smith.
Oh, can't forget Finest.
The gospel Fort Worth and the
Hmm.
gospel music workshop has not been the same since
You're
finally.
right.
Listen, finally, I don't know how he did it, Sam, but Sam Finance had all the dirt from the workshop. So if you want to know anything, all you
Yeah.
had to do was sit down with Sam with a finance, and he could tell you everything from every division, from the academics, church and praise and chorale, mass choir, the men's choir, the women's well,
Yes, sir. He was a character.
Miss Flo Green from Carter Metropolitan, one of the great organists here in the city. I know you knew her, Reverend Foster. Sister Flo Green, Miss A.B. Gunner. Did you know her, Reverend Foster?
Who?
A.B. Gunner.
Miss Gunner. Yes, Rising Star.
Hmm.
Yeah, she's another one that played that big upright piano. That was her piano.
And so, Mr. Willie Hargrave, did you know him?
Yes. Hmm.
So, uh, he was at Mount Gilead. Did he play the piano or the organ down there?
Probably the organ is probably what he played. I don't ever remember seeing him playing the piano.
Okay.
Yeah. Last
Uh,
time I
Miss Onita Henderson.
Oh
Onita.
yeah, I know her. Really
Mhm.
know her. That's my mother.
That's your mother?
That's my mother.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
do really know her.
Yeah, you better know her. And so, what other churches did your mother play at, Reverend Foster?
See, Lee Avenue and Progressive in Greenway and Lee Avenue until she passed away.
Okay, all right. See, Reverend Foster, I don't even think I ever knew your mother was a musician.
No, she probably didn't. A lot of people because they don't associate the name Henderson with Foster.
Okay, okay. What about? I know you knew Renard Hunter.
Oh yeah, yeah. Remember
Mhm.
Renard? Uh, we all played to Renard, myself, and I'm gonna mention another one that's passed on, Charles Pikes, Dwight Taylor.
Mhm.
We all played together for the Fort Worth Citywide,
Mhm.
and at that particular time, it was all of us, and we were faithful to rehearsing and doing whatever Mr. Rivers, U.L. Rivers, was the director, but we did all the playing for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So listen, we're coming up on 9 o'clock. I'm going to try to read off as many names as I can because it's just so many. But we wanted to do something, you guys, to remember these people that came our way and impacted our lives. That left a great impact on our lives. Mrs. Johnny Hickman, Mr. Osborne Hudson, Carolyn Ingram from Cleburne and Pleasant Mount Gilead, Miss Patsy Jackson, one of the great educators and musicians, Miss Sarah Jackson, Mr. Jesse James, Ron Jenkins. I remember Ron, Audrey Johnson, Miss Ima Jean Johnson, Miss Valerie Johnson, Minnie Jordan, Miss Elizabeth Jolinet, Eugenia Keys, Malcolm Lee, Missy Hambrick, Reverend Preston Lewis, Miss Mabel Lloyd, Maddie B. Loud, Gwen Love, um, let's see. Let me keep going. Miss Marietta Miller, man, I'm still just in shock that Miss Marietta Miller is no longer with us. Miss Helen Monday, the Reverend Eddie Moore Jr., who could play Amazing Grace like nobody else. Um, Miss Rosetta Moore, Miss Vivian Moore, who's at Our Mother Mercy, Mr. James Mosley, Miss Josephine Norman, um, Charles Webb said Gene Caldwell, who was at Bear Street, um, Leroy Williams, just so many. Mr. Sammy Simonton. Sammy gave me my first song that I ever sang in a church. Um, I forgot the name of it, but I was going for the house that night. He gave me that song. Miss Bessie Randall, Miss Beatrice Pringle, Mr. Emery Polk. Um, I mean, just so. Miss Maud Schellenberg, Miss Lola Sims, Mr. Timmy Sims. He wasn't a musician, but he was a singer and a songwriter. Reverend Gregory Spencer, uh, Pastor Michael Stevenson, Mr. Bobby Strider, Mr. Dwight O. Taylor, Greg Taylor, Heavenly Gospel Church of God in Christ, Mr. Roosevelt Thompson, Miss A.H. Trezevant, Miss Pinky Tucker, Mr. Emerson Wade. Oh man, that's who I was trying to remember earlier, Reverend Foster. Mr. Emerson Wade. And so many others, y'all. Zachary Wilder. You remember Zach, don't you, Sam?
Yes, sir, I do.
Mm-hmm. And listen, y'all, if there are other people that y'all remember, Sister Crystal Jordan is on with us right now. We're going to be on with her, and we're going to talk about her mom. Go ahead and type their name in the comments section, and we will remember them. We honored Mr. Gerald Wright from Grace Temple Seventh-day Adventist Church on last week. One of my longtime friends, Mr. Steve Montgomery. We want to remember him. Mr. Rufus Williams, Miss Nadine Williams, Gaines Williams, so many. Mr. Charles Williams, who was also over the senior choir at Grace Temple. Just so many people, y'all, that gave their life to the music ministry. Sam, before you leave, tell us a little bit about what's going on with Dallas chapter, what's going on with the Gospel Music Workshop.
Okay, Saturday will be our first in-person rehearsal in about 14 months. So we're going to meet at West Side in Louisville on Saturday. We're going to meet to rehearse, and of course, the convention is virtual this year. So we're going to come back the next Saturday, I believe the 12th, and record our presentation for the virtual convention. And it's you can now register at gmwanational.net for the virtual convention. It's going to be July 18th through the 22nd. Mm-hmm. I almost said it's going to be in Dallas, but I'm saying it's virtual. I don't know where I got that from, but it's virtual this year, and that's about it. You know, we haven't been doing much because of the pandemic, but we have been meeting monthly just to stay together as a chapter. So we will meet in person on Saturday at West.
So how do you join the Dallas chapter?
You can join the Dallas chapter. You can go to our website, dallaschaptergmwa.org, and you can register there. Or you can reach out to me. I'm on Facebook, Samuel Britt, or Kathy Daniels, who is one of our business managers. She's probably better knowledgeable assisting you with registration than I am, because I go to them for all of that. But we normally would meet the first Saturday of every month at 4 o'clock. But because of the pandemic, we have been meeting via Zoom. but you can go in and just register your contact information as your email, and as communications are sent out, you will receive them, so you'll know what's going on with the Dallas chapter.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much, Brother Sam Britt, for joining us tonight and sharing in this commemoration event. And
Thank you
Reverend
for.
Foster, listen, Reverend Foster has been under the weather, and I didn't know that until I spoke with him the other day. Are you taking it easy, Reverend Foster?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've only been out uh, one or two times in the last 6 weeks.
Okay, okay.
Uh,
Well, listen, you take it easy, and again, thank you guys for taking out of your time to share with us. Man, y'all have mentioned some names that I had never heard of, and then some of them I had forgotten. And then Sam just threw one on me that I was shocked about. Kenneth Henderson, didn't even know he had passed.
Yeah. Right, right. Well,
let
okay.
me,
Well, Glenn, thank you for. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, let me mention. Uh, we were trying to think of her name that played at Allen Chapel solo, Maddie Loud. That's who. That was her
But he
name.
laughed.
She
Okay,
played that
okay,
old pipe organ.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, listen, Reverend Foster and Brother Sam, thank you so much for joining us. We have in the house with us right now Sister Crystal Jordan. Crystal, unmute your, yeah, there you go. And so we're going to remember
Okay.
her mother
Hi,
tonight.
Sam.
Hey, Crystal, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Hello, Reverend Foster. Thank you.
Howdy, 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 howdy,
Uh,
howdy.
Yeah, we're doing an extended pajama praise tonight. And so, listen, y'all, we are commemorating the life of Miss Jawanda Jordan, a great educator, longtime church minister of music in the city of Dallas. She was known throughout the state and the country for all of the works that she did. And tonight we're going to commemorate her. Her daughter's with us, Miss Crystal Jordan. And so, Sister Jordan, I see another person here, Miss S. Carter. Is that one of your guests? I'm not sure who that is. But we have somebody else on with us. I'm not sure who S. Carter is. I'm not going to let him in. Um, but so we're going to talk about Miss Jawanda Jordan. So, Crystal, tell us a little bit about you. Now, I know you direct the youth choir at Bethany, but tell us some more about you, some of the things you're doing.
Oh, goodness. Well, the pandemic kind of put everything that I was doing on hold for over 25 years. I have worked with children's choirs in Dallas at my former church at Friendship West Baptist Church. And then I started working with my mother at Bethany Baptist Church. Then when I went back to my home church at Greater Bethlehem, I worked with the children and youth there. So, and then my church, another church I worked with at Porter Temple, CME. So
Okay.
I have just kind of dabbled into working with the children from ages 3 to really 18 for over
Mhm.
25 years. And all of that, of course, was because my mom was like, come help me.
Mhm.
And that's how
Mhm.
it started. And I just never stopped. I just was nonstop working with children's choirs all that time
Mhm. And so
up until when the pandemic came.
now you're a singer too, right?
I try to be. I try to be.
Yeah, yeah. And so you grew up with the great Miss Jawanda Jordan,
The
whose
great
name,
and fantastic.
yeah, yeah. So how was it growing up with Miss Jawanda Jordan?
Oh wow, let's see. She was the same in private as she was in public. She was very straight, no chaser, very honest and loving and hilarious. I often tell people my mother was extremely funny. She had a great sense of humor. Um, Growing up with my mom was like growing up in a music store because she
Mm-hmm.
played everything. I heard everything from classical music to R&B to jazz to gospel,
Mm-hmm.
everything. Sonatas, hymns, I heard it all. And so that was my growing up, my rearing with her. And when I got into high school, she she would she just introduced us to all levels of music.
So now, where did you go to high school?
I went to South Oak Cliff. I actually went to school with my mother,
Okay.
being my music teacher,
Oh, okay. Okay.
which was interesting in itself because it would be interesting to go into class and say, "Hi, Miss Mom." I mean, Mrs. Jordan. So most of the time, I didn't even say anything because it was too hard to kind of keep it separate from saying Mom and Mrs. Jordan. So
Okay. So were you in district or out of district?
I was in district. She worked at South Oak Cliff, and we were not even 10 minutes away from the school. So I was with her from, I guess, from the 10th grade all the way until I graduated high school. So
Okay.
I stayed literally next to her from all that time. And she
Okay.
taught all grade levels. She taught everything from elementary to high school. And then when she retired from high school, she started teaching at Paul Quinn College. So she even taught
Okay.
college kids.
Oh, wow, wow. Yeah, I know in the comments section on one of the posts, somebody said that your mom taught her in middle school.
Yes, she taught all grade levels. And Larry Willis,
Hmm.
she taught him in middle school and just took him in as she did with most her kids, just took him in as her own.
Okay, okay. And so where was Miss Jordan actually born? Where was she born?
She was born in Quitman, Texas, um,
Okay.
in 1937. I mean, nobody would know that my mom was in her 80s, but she made it to 80, and she just looked so wonderful. And she was born in Quitman, in just in the country, but she always loved music. She told me that she was always a music lover. And her mother, my grandmother, sang in
Okay.
church choir and had a wonderful voice. They went to Greater Bethlehem when they moved to Dallas, and they
Okay.
joined there. And
Oh, wow.
she joined at Greater Bethlehem when she was a little girl, and she learned how to play the piano and got more into the love of music under Miss Bertha Shepherd, who was the minister of music at the time there, who taught her how to play the piano and really kind of taught her everything that she knew about music in general.
Okay. Now, did your mom go to Bishop
She did. She went and graduated from Bishop College. Now she went to Bishop when it was uh ooh,
in
in
Marshall?
Marshall, Texas.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's where
Uh,
she went there, and she also went to she decided to go and uh get her master's at SMU, and yeah, in here in Dallas. And let me see, she also studied at Texas Southern and
okay.
Sam Houston, and she did some online education with the University of Denver. I mean,
All
she
right.
loved music.
Right. Yeah. She was. I know in the choral department, in choral music in the state of Texas, she was very well known. I remember in high school, she came over and judged some of our contests.
Hmm. Yeah,
She.
she was very uh, big with the teachers, and of course anything education in the school district. She did do some judging for
Mhm.
the UIL. And what was the other one? There was another music contest. Of course, my brain is all over the place at this point, trying to remember everything that she did. But she was very active. Her whole goal when she was teaching in school was to give our kids an opportunity to get more music than what they would hear at church or even on the radio.
Right,
She
right.
introduced hymns and arias and classical music to the kids that she taught at her schools, especially at South Oak Cliff.
hmm Now, did she teach at any other high schools than South Oak Cliff?
Not any other high schools. She just taught at all, like I said, all levels of school throughout the Dallas Independent School District.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, and so I know that she was well known in the education circle, but then when it came to church music, she was very, very well known in the church music circle. What were some of the churches she played at?
Well, she had, of course, growing up in Greater Bethlehem, she was there. Oh gosh, I can't even put all the years on that one. But when I moved my membership over to Friendship West, I had her to come with me, along with a little urging from her good friend, Mr. William Mitchell. So
Right.
she taught for years at Greater Bethlehem Baptist Church, and then we went to Friendship West Baptist Church, and we
Okay.
were there for about, I guess she was there about 5 or 6 years, and then her good friend who she taught with at South Oak Cliff, Mr. Brown, was
Mm-hmm.
at Bethany,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "Come on over here and help me out one Sunday," and she did. And then the next thing you know, she was over there helping Mr. Brown and working with him there. And when
Mm-hmm.
he passed, she just kind of like flowed into the position, I guess you could say, as
Right.
minister of music. And she was there at Bethany until her passing. But as far as
Mm-hmm.
working with other entities and churches, because she was a member of the NAM, National Association of Negro Musicians,
Mm-hmm.
Dallas chapter, she, of course, was with many of the churches working within the Dallas chapter. She
Mm-hmm.
had ties with the South Dallas Concert Choir, and of course, that was various churches working together within the community. She just knew of all the churches. She worked heavily with many churches in Fort Worth. So it wasn't just Dallas. She worked
Right. Right. Right.
all over the Metroplex.
Right. Yeah, I always talk about her coming to the Hymn Fest I used to do in Fort Worth, Macedonia. I put her on the spot the first time she came. We were doing, and so we had the segment broke, the hymn festival broken up into segment. And so we were doing the patriotic hymns. And we were doing them the way they were written, and so I knew she would know it. And so on the spot, I called. I said, "Miss Jordan, come up and direct Oh Beautiful" or something, one of the hymns. And she came on up and did it. And then she came back another time. And so I had a chance to work with her at that time. And then I came over one time, but I don't think she was there. Dr. Ford had something with NAM, and I did something. But I mean, I just had a chance to see her professionalism. She was the consummate professional.
She was quite the professional and perfectionist to a certain degree, to a certain degree. But she always had a way of working. I used to say her magic in having us have one sound. That was her gift. She could have 100 voices, and we would just sound like one soprano or one tenor or one alto. She would blend voices really, really well. She had a perfect pitch. She could hear everything. If you were off, she knew it was you. She was amazing. She could always hear somebody wasn't quite where they needed to be, and
Mhm.
sometimes she would point that person out, and sometimes she would say, "Now somebody in this section right here needs to come down because you're too loud." And
Mhm. And
she could pinpoint you. That was one of her gifts.
so, Brother Kenneth Carr, one of the choir members at Bethany, said Miss Jordan was hilarious.
Yeah, that's right. She could get you with a look. I don't know how she had this look, and you would just know, oh, I did wrong, or I messed that up, or I didn't sing that just like she wanted me to sing it. And she wouldn't have to say anything. She just would look at you and you would know. And if you
Mm,
weren't, when we were in school, if we weren't paying attention, she would bang on the piano, and that was her form of chewing us out. So we
mm,
knew to stop whatever we were doing because we were not doing correctly. Because she would hit that piano really, really firmly, and she would tell me afterwards that was my cuss. I was cussing y'all out.
well, yeah, I know. Being a high school music teacher, man, that's
You got
you
all of it.
yeah.
Yes. But
I mean,
she had a gift to work with kids of all ages, and she
mhm,
would make you comfortable. And then, of course, she could work with adults. She could work with
mhm,
everybody and just get you to come on in and want to give your best and render what you had to the services that were being offered. She was something special, that's for sure.
mhm,
And she worked well with anybody. She could work with anybody. I mean, all ages, all races. I never will forget. We went to a UIL contest one year. I
mhm,
think I was in the 10th grade, and here we are, all these beautiful brown children, these little beautiful black children in our black choir dresses and our tuxedos to perform. And whenever we would go to get ready to do UIL contest, she would tell us, "Now look, don't embarrass me. Don't get out here and act like I haven't taught you how to be together and conduct yourselves." And we would go in and we would stand and get in our places. And when we would stand up there, I remember we sung Agnus Dei, and
yeah.
the people, the judges were just kind of like, when we started singing, they all turned and looked at us like, "Are these kids singing Mozart?" And I mean, is this what we doing? And we got
Mhm,
straight ones. I mean, we
mhm,
we knocked it out the park, and we were so proud of ourselves. And because we were in the southern sector,
mhm,
and here we are singing classical music, and it
mhm,
was and flawlessly we did that. And she taught us all genres of music. uh Spirituals was her favorite. She absolutely loved spirituals, and
mhm,
so she always taught us a plethora of spirituals. And she had different choirs in schools. The boys, she had the boys choir, and the girls choir, and of course the mass. But she taught the boys choir, one of my favorite spirituals, "The Animals Is Coming." Took it to
okay.
contest and got straight ones.
Oh wow, 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 wow. And so we were trying to set it up where we kind of commemorated your mom and Miss Billy Roberts tonight, and I couldn't
Yes,
get uh, couldn't get in touch with her daughters to do it. But so when you heard the name Miss Jawanda Jordan, you also heard the name Billy Roberts. Tell us about that long time friendship.
they taught schools. I want to say it was at Annex. I want to say it was at South Oak Cliff Annex that they worked together, and uh they were the music teachers. I mean, And the funny thing, my favorite story between Sister Roberts and my mother was they taught at the end of a hallway, and the kids would go walk in and out of the classrooms, going to class. And one time, it was a little boy. He was running in the hallway, and Sister Roberts said, "No," my mother said, "Stop that running in that hallway." And the little boy turned around. Sister Roberts was in one doorway, and my mother was in the other. And the little boy turned around and he saw Sister Roberts, and then he saw my mother, and he was telling the little boy, "You got to be careful down that hallway. It's two giants down there." Because they were both very tall. So he was like, "You be careful down that hallway. It's two giants down there." And that was always my favorite story and they were great friends for years and years. If you saw Mom, you pretty much saw Sister Billy Roberts. They worked together with numerous choirs. Mom would go over and help her at her school with her choirs, and then Sister Roberts would come over and help Mom at South Oak Cliff and wherever, churches or whichever. But when Sister Roberts took her high school choir to London, she took my mom with her.
Oh, wow.
And they worked together, and the kids I remember some of those kids came back and told me, "Oh, I fell in love with your mom and Sister Roberts, Miss Roberts in London." And I was like, so when you say my mom got to travel and utilize her gift everywhere, she even went across the waters to share her gift with others.
So now, what school was Miss Roberts at?
I want to say Sister Roberts was at Lincoln.
Okay.
I believe she was at Lincoln High School.
Okay.
And that's where they worked together. Where she worked, and that my mom would come and help her with her choir.
And I know that Sock and Lincoln were great football rivals. Yeah.
And choir rivals as well. Choir rivals as well. If we were in the same contest, if we were at the same, choir contest, we wanted to sing better than they did, or really than any choirs. It was always our goals to get straight one in all of our UIL contests, all of that. And so that was the goal. We had to go in and bring all the wins. We had to bring all the wins in.
So Donna Franklin said that Miss Roberts was at Roosevelt.
At Roosevelt, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Because I know she
I know they were in. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah. I can't remember if it was. I know that she worked with. Oh no, I think that was Mr. It was another teacher that was at Lincoln. But yes, Miss Robert was at Roosevelt.
Yeah, she said that Miss Billy was her sister's music teacher at Roosevelt. Okay.
Okay.
And so, man, one of the first times I saw your mom and Miss Billy Roberts perform together was at one of the National Baptist Conventions. And this was back in the 80s. They did it at the Dallas Convention Center. And Miss Jordan was directing the choir, and Miss Billy was on the piano. And
yes.
They did some big anthem. It might have been "Let Mount Zion Rejoice" or the Heavens Are Telling, but man, it was crisp. They just worked so well together.
They were awesome together. They were. They really were.
And so you grew up around a bunch of music, and so day in and day out, you were around music. And so did you travel a lot with Miss Jordan?
When I got older, she had always, for years, she had been going to the Gospel Music Workshop of America, and I had never gone. And then I guess when we went to Friendship West together, I started going to the GMWA with her, and it was an experience because my mom went to everything. She was up at 7 o'clock I mean, at 7 a.m., she would be at the very first offering of classes, and she
Mm-hmm.
went all day. She went to everything, women's mass, male chorus. She did it all, and she would go and then would come home for just a minute, come back to the hotel room for just a minute, and then
Uh-huh.
go to the night services and be at all of the concerts. And I would just be like, how are you able to do all of this, ma'am? It was driving for her. She loved it. We
Uh,
would go and walk around in the where all of the
exhibit.
vendors were.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
She loved it. And as she got older, and GMWA just blew up, so she wanted to kind of downsize. So she started going to the Dorsey convention.
Okay. Okay.
She
Okay.
loved it. She loved Dorsey. And
Mm-hmm.
I went with her to one Dorsey convention.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. It was
Mm-hmm.
on a smaller scale of
Right.
GMWA, but it was outstanding, and it was the first time I got a chance to actually meet Dr. Margaret DeRoe for
Okay.
myself.
Okay. Okay.
And so, and of course, somehow my mom and Miss and Dr. DeRoe knew each other well. But it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of like that with her and many, you know, most musicians who wrote music for the workshops. One of her favorite musicians was Glenn Burley.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
She
Uh-huh.
did she did a I think she did almost everything that Glenn Burley wrote. She had
Mm-hmm.
all his music and was
Mm-hmm.
a big advocate of him coming to uh, do the workshops here in Dallas for
Right.
NAM. He did
Right.
most of them, many of them up until his passing, and he
Mm-hmm.
he was just and he was awesome. And
Mm-hmm.
it always tickled me. I love to see Glenn Burley direct, and he
Mm-hmm.
would come and tell me, "I love to see your mother direct," and I would
Uh-huh.
see a little bit of both of them in each the way that they conducted choirs, but
See,
it was they
I could see Glenn asking your mother to conduct some of his songs, because he was a
yeah.
phenomenal writer, pianist, and he could hold the choir together. But I know he always liked to see conductors conduct too.
He did. He did. He loved to see her conduct. I have to admit the things that I do know about conducting a choir. I always wanted to mirror my mom. Her hand
Mm-hmm.
movements and the way that she just everything. Her facial expressions. She could be just letting us have it, but no one behind her would know that she was chewing us out all while she was directing.
Now there was
She was
another writer your mom liked too, because I saw her several times do his music. Was Moses Hogan? She
loved
loved.
Moses Hope.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
She did. She loved his music. She loved the intricacies of his music and how he would score things. And so
Uh-huh.
she liked music that had a challenge. And if it had a little bit of a challenge, she was all for that. Um, and she was very precise. Even with some of the gospel songs. I know Richard Smallwood, when he came out with Total Praise, it
Mm-hmm.
was everybody wanted to sing Total Praise, and everybody wanted to make sure that the amens were what they thought.
Uh-huh.
She got those amens just like Richard Smallwood wanted, with the movements for the tenors. It wasn't just everybody holding amen. Everybody had their parts, and she wanted to make sure that you sung it properly.
Uh-huh.
So she taught that to all of her choirs. She did. She taught that to all of her
Mm-hmm.
choirs. And I can't remember the young lady's name, well, I say young lady, but she was a lady. She scored "Even Me," which was one of my mom's favorite hymns.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Diane
she
White.
scored it.
Diane
And
White, I believe that's who did it.
she liked Diane White. It was Dorothy something, I think, or Doris.
Oh yeah, I know
Oh,
who
I
you're
can't.
talking.
You know who I'm talking about. But
Uh-huh.
she loved traditional hymns, of course. And if you did too much rearranging, she would just kind of go, mm-mm. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
let's just
Mm-hmm.
go back. That's why she loved coming to the Hymn Fest in Fort Worth, and was very
Mm-hmm.
excited when they did like a Hymn Fest here in Dallas for Miss Sam mentioned her
Uh-huh.
for
It's
John Archie.
John. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I actually had an opportunity to present in that hymn fest, and it was nice. They did
It
it at
was
I know they
wonderful.
did one at the Presbyterian Church there in South Oak Cliff. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
It was wonderful.
and
And I'm
so
hoping that as we continue to open up, we can get back to the place where we can have Hymn Fest again. It's really
mhm,
important that we teach this generation,
right,
this
right.
group of kids, young people, hymns. It is awesome that we have such great gospel music out now, but
Hmm.
it is imperative that we keep the hymns alive. If we
Right.
don't, they'll just kind of fade off. And
Fade
that was
off.
one of the things that my mother loved about Bethany, is that she didn't have to stop teaching an anthem or a
Hmm.
hymn. She
Hmm.
had that ability to teach them how to sing an anthem. She would teach people how to read music. I mean, if they never picked
Hmm.
up a piece of sheet music ever,
Right.
she would take the time to teach choir members and as her students how to read scored music. She would tell them, you may not play, you may not ever play an instrument, but I want you to be able to read, to sight
Hmm.
read music. And she did. She taught us how to read music. And a lot of kids said that they had never done anything like that
Right.
until coming across my mom,
Right.
and went on to become choir teachers and directors themselves
Right.
because of her pouring into them that opportunity and gift.
Well, one of the things, Crystal, is so if we don't have people reading music, then there will be songs that will forever be lost. Dr. Patrick Bradley is on with us tonight, and he teaches a music reading class at the Gospel Music Workshop. And who knows, maybe one of these days he'll come to one of the churches and do a music reading class or something to that sort, because there's sheet music, to songs that are great songs, but if you don't know how to read the music, you won't know how to interpret the song. I mean, the song will be dead.
Correct.
I was sharing with my son. I was telling him one of the things I learned in high school at ODY with Miss Kelly. I was in her music theory class, and she was teaching us the circle of fifths. And when I
Hmm.
learned the circle of fifths, well, the circle of fifths taught me the scales in
Right.
music. Well, I learned all the scales in music. Therefore, that translated into me being able to play in every key. I can play in every key.
That's
If you switch
wonderful.
keys, I can switch keys with you. And I learned that from music theory, learning the circle of fifths, learning the scales. Hmm.
Right. Right. We have to we it's really important that we learn how to read music, to know where the notes are going, so that we can have the right interpretation
Hmm.
for not just hymns and not just spirituals, but
Hmm.
all music. Because more artists I've come to see are scoring their music, and in
Hmm.
their scoring, they of course they make it available for us that do read, uh, to teach the songs to our choirs and to our to our individual groups. And if you can't read music, because you just have to have it. I know that my mom, in teaching children, she wouldn't allow us to type out the words for the
Hmm.
kids. We had to teach the children the words And in teaching them the words, we could teach them the right way that to have it sung. Because if you heard it, then you were trying to sing it how you thought it was. But if she had the scored music in front of her, then I'm teaching you the correct way that the writer, she used to say all the time, don't change this person's music. This is how they this is how they wanted it to be sung. Now we might can color it a little bit, but we're not gonna change it completely.
Right, right, right. You know, one of the things that I thought about, you know, so when I was growing up in church, I don't ever remember, and we would do entire musicals, but they never would hand us out any words. You know, and some of the gospel music we did, I mean, there was no sheet music to it, but we
Right,
somehow learned all those words. I mean, and some of the songs had a lot of words, you know, um, and that's because we had good teachers that taught, you know, taught us how to put the sentences together, taught us how to memorize the songs.
right.
Mhm.
It and that was what she how she would want it to be taught. I mean, she would prefer that you listen, because if you're listening to the words as opposed to trying to read the papers and read the lyrics, you're learning it in the same, you're learning all of it at the same time. Not only
Mhm.
the words, the lyrics, but also the melody of the song. And so that was how she taught music, how she would do it. I mean,
So I wanted
and
to
she
ask you
preferred it
something.
that way.
So she was a member of several organizations. I know NAM in his, in especially. How did she get involved with NAM?
Through her dear friend, Mr. Mitchell, William Mitchell. I think
Okay.
he had gone to a conference, or some. He went to an event, that workshop that NAM offered, and he came back from that workshop or that convention and said, "I want to start this in Dallas, and I want somebody who's going to be as dedicated and driven to this as I am." And of course, he called on my mom and said, "Joanda, help me get this thing going." And they did. And they had a small group of other musicians. I want to say Meredith Lawson, Miss Peaches, and Sister Roberts, and a couple of other folks that just kind of they brought it all together. And they started working with the Dallas chapter. They started the NAM Dallas chapter. And yes, she was heavily involved with NAM, GMWA. For many years, she worked with the Black Academy of Arts and Letters for the
Mhm.
MLK celebration. Oh gosh, she did that for years. She worked with Curtis King, getting that civil rights musical concert together. And she's just she did all kind, and the funny thing is she never did a lot of individual workshops
Okay.
herself, but she would always be a part of a
Mhm.
workshop that was happening, or some of the local concerts that were going on in town. Because she loved music. She took me to more. You talk about growing up in the music house. I did, because it seemed like every Sunday we were going to somebody's church for a musical. Every
Mhm.
Sunday, being a
So
part of that.
so now, how long was she the president of the NAM organization?
Um, I want to say, ooh, let's see. I know she started NAM in 1983. 83.
Oh, wow.
Uh, yes, and she was the director for 11 years. She was the director of the southern region of NAM for 11 years.
Okay. Okay.
hmm And she was a look. I'm trying to remember what all she was. She was a board member at the Dallas chapter of GMA, and she was a Golden Life member at the Delta Sigma Theta. She was a Delta.
Okay. Okay. So when you say the region, so she was a part of the regional.
Yes, she
Okay.
was the director of the Southern region of the of the National Association of Negro Musicians. So she was uh, on part of the board, I guess you could say, for that Southern region, and
Okay.
she went to the conventions and the workshops there for
Mhm.
that every year, and with Mr. Mitchell and Peaches and well, I mean Meredith Lawson, um,
Mhm.
every year they went and they would be at the board meetings, and
Okay.
we have a whole file cabinet full of NAM information for the
Wow.
Southern region.
And so now, did she organize the South Dallas Concert Choir?
She did not organize it. If there was another gentleman, and shame on me for not remembering his name, he was over the South Dallas Concert Choir, and he passed, and I can't remember which member said, "Let's ask Miss Jordan if she'll come and work with us." And she did. She came and joined a South Dallas concert choir. Oh gosh. Uh I want to say,
Now, what was it, Mr. Lloyd, that started the South Dallas Concert Choir?
I don't know if he started it. I think there was another gentleman before Mr. Lloyd, but
Okay.
he was like maybe the second, and
Okay.
then they worked together for a while, and of course then once Mr. Lloyd passed, it was my mom that was working with the South Dallas Concert Choir, and
Mhm.
she would take us to there was a festival, a spirituals festival that was held every year in Shreveport, and
Okay.
we would go, and it was always so interesting because South Dallas Concert Choir was mostly some of our seniors, but we would
Hmm.
get on that bus and go to Shreveport and have us a wonderful time. And we would go to this church in Shreveport and sing. And I never will forget one year we sang in Bright Mansions
Hmm. Hmm.
and shut it down. They just couldn't believe it. I mean, it was awesome. It was, and then after that, she started taking the college choir. She started taking Paul Quinn to this same. So she would have two choirs. It was she would have the South Dallas Concert Choir and Paul Quinn College Choir.
Okay. Okay.
Just she was a workaholic. She was a
And so,
workaholic, but
so
she loved what she did.
Dr. Bradley is on with us tonight. You know, he's over the Paul Quinn Choir now. So he's
Yeah.
taking up that mantle of working with the young people over at Paul Quinn. You know, man, your mom just has such incredible legacy, just incredible legacy, you know, in big shoes to fill. I mean, and you're doing that in your own right through working with the different choirs at the various churches. And then Dr. Bradley is taking up that mantle at Paul Quinn. You know, and so you don't have, you know, some of our directors like Miss Jordan, Miss Billy Roberts, Michael Terrell,
Mm,
Michael Ford, Michael Terrell, Michael Ford, Charles
yes.
Mitchell. So, I mean, that's a whole generation right there, you know, that has passed away. And so, you know, this generation is coming. We can't forget them, you know, and we should not ever allow their names to go silent, you know?
Right. Never.
Mhm. You know,
We want
even
to.
so this is where I was going with this. Even as I serve as minister of music at Bethany, you know, I bring up Miss Jordan's name quite frequently, you know, because you know I knew she had the standards, and I don't plan to let the standards drop, you know. And I know it's a different, I'm actually kind of working with a different group, but the standard does not change. You know, the standard does not
Correct.
change.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
She was a stickler for a good standard. She could lay the
Mm-hmm.
groundwork for you, and if you just kind of followed along with her, you could continue a great ministry. She did. She laid some good groundwork for you, brother Nixon. She really did, and dedication was really important to her, and the choir members, even in the midst of this pandemic, with everything that's going on, the fact that people still want to continue their ministry and continue serving is a blessing. And sometimes a lot of that is based on who the leader is. If the leader showed compassion and drive, then the choir members would want to have that same compassion and drive to continue and carry on. And I'm so pleased with the music ministry at Bethany, and the fact that even in the midst of this pandemic, the church still desires to have me to come in and render what I can. I'm really grateful. She left me some really big shoes to fill, and I'm just trying my best to keep them, to keep my feet in them.
You're
Just
doing it. You're doing it. You're
trying.
doing
I'm trying.
it. Yeah, man.
Oh, and I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that in oh my gosh, in 2013 there was a
Mhm,
young man who came to my mother to ask about her composing a song for the JFK
mhm,
speech, and
mhm,
she wrote uh music and scored music for a documentary that they did,
mhm.
that was called the Unspoken Speech Project, Lord Keep the City.
Oh
And the
wow.
South Dallas Concert Choir, they sang that song in that documentary, and it's actually on YouTube. And it's just one of the most beautiful pieces that and she used to write music. She wrote some music for children's choirs. Um, and she
Mhm.
would often say, I'm going to submit it. But she didn't. She
Oh
didn't
wow.
submit them.
Man, I'd like to
But
see it. If you have any
she
of the
did.
comments, I'd love to see it. You know.
Do I think I can put my hands on some of at least one of the songs that she wrote. One of our dear friends, Pastor Robert Winters, she taught
Mhm,
a song that said, "We come today to thank you, Lord, for everything." He loved that song so much he would actually sing it when he would go and preach,
mhm.
and he would come back and tell her, "Mama J, I sang your song today," and she was always so pleased with that,
Oh
that he would take that song and sing it wherever when he was getting ready to preach somewhere.
well. So let me ask you this. You know who we haven't talked about? We haven't talked about her grandson Thomas, who has a natural gift to play, and he's last time he told me he's not even playing piano, but I mean has the natural touch on the piano. So what is Thomas doing now?
Thomas is 16, so you can only imagine. But he still tinkers a little bit on his keyboard, and he has a natural, it just flows out of his fingers. I mean, he has a very soft touch, and he's music is in him deep and heavy, like it was in her. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that just might be because I often would say I just had him for her, that because that was her baby. I mean, totally it was. And he has an awesome gift, um, that I feel like at some point he's gonna let it just kind of come out of him, and he's gonna be able to bless many, because he sings and he plays. He still tinkers around a little bit. I'm hoping that before he gets too old, because most people who used to play when they were younger and they stopped, they always say, "Oh, I wish I had stuck with it." Because I say that I wish I had stuck with learning, you know, in my learning of how to play the piano. I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping that before he gets too far along in his years, he'll go back to it and start uh playing the piano again. But yes, he is a avid music lover, like his mom and like his grandmother.
Mhm.
But my father, well, my mother's mother could sing and she loved music, but my dad owned a record store
Oh,
years
wow.
ago in South Dallas. Yes, so when we talk about being immersed in music, I was literally covered in music at all times, and I had my hands and access to it at any time because I could get the latest music because my dad had a record store.
Oh, wow. What was the name of the record store?
VJ's Records.
Okay. Oh, wow. How's your dad doing?
He's doing great. He just walked by me, but yes, he's doing great. And everybody, my brother. It's so
Yeah.
funny. Us growing up, we were in our various schools. My brother was in musical theater when he was in
Okay.
high school. He could sing and dance.
So he
I
went
was
to
in
Booker
all the
T?
choirs in
Your
high
brother went to
school.
Booker T?
My brother has a great voice. He just,
Yeah, yeah. And I heard that he did. I don't think I've heard him sing yet.
you
Yeah,
just haven't heard him sing, but he does. He has a great voice. He does. And so and my daddy, he could kind of hold a note a little bit.
yeah. Well, man, that is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. So again, your mom was very well known. When you talk about musicians in Dallas, I mean, you have to say Miss Jawanda Jordan because she was one of the trailblazers. And then when you say Miss Jawanda Jordan, then you think of Miss Billy Roberts.
That
Because
is correct.
they were always together. When I went to Bethany, they talked about the team working together. And, just this past year, Miss Roberts passed away. I mean, I'm still just in shock, just in
Right.
shock. We had talked about, I was glad to be there to work with Miss Roberts, to learn so much from her. And then I had sat down with her one day. We had talked about all these big anthems and stuff we were going to do with the choir because she could play all of those songs. And man, it's just a great loss for
It
her not
is.
to be with us. And so, those two working together, keeping the rich tradition of choir music and then music education alive. I hope that some of our young people will follow in their footsteps. I hope they do.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's up to us. I mean, at the end of the day, we may not have to do it every day or every um, rehearsal that we have an opportunity to teach and introduce our kids. One of the great things that I love about Bethany is that our children or the children that grew up in Bethany, they can honestly say, I know a hymn and I can
Hmm.
sing a hymn from beginning to end, all the stanzas. I know them. I've heard that. And
Hmm.
if as long as we, the older generation, as we like to, as we say now, continue to pour that into these babies, they can, as they get older, because of course, when I was young, I had no idea that God Me, O Thy Great Jehovah was really going to make a big difference to me, or that
Hmm.
Jesus Keep Me Near the Cross was going to be a song that I could really understand. When I was little, I didn't get it, but now that I'm older, I do. I understand the significance and power of a good hymn.
Hmm.
And so I'm hoping that we can keep that history and the greatness of that going. Um,
So I mentioned to you several months ago or a while back. I can't remember that we wanted to start doing a hymn fest. At Bethany in memory of your mom and Miss Roberts. And so we're going to do that when we get through this pandemic. We'll get
right.
together, plan it out, invite some people over, and make that happen. Hmm.
Oh, I so look forward to that. I really do. I do.
So listen, we've come to the end, man. I really appreciate you taking out your time. I didn't want to let this month go by without us mentioning your mom. This has been a month of commemoration. Oh man, we started this month off remembering Mr. Dwight O. Taylor. He was the first member. He was one of my mentors. He grew up in Bethany. He grew up in Bethany and then later moved to Fort Worth. And it was funny how that worked out. When I went to Bethany, it didn't dawn on me that's the church that Dwight had grown up in. And one Sunday I was sitting there. I said, I've heard this name before. And Brother Carr is on with us tonight. And so I took up with his sister, Miss Sister Minnie Ruth Carr. So I went to Sister Carr and asked her, I said, Sister Carr, did you know a Dwight Taylor? She said, of course I did. He grew up in this church. He lived right across the street from us. And so he was the first person we honored this month. And then we remembered Mr. Paul Bigham. No, Sister Laura Rogers. No, Sister Paul Bigham. Brother Paul Bigham, who was another mentor. There's Sister Laura Rogers, who was a great singer. Last week we remembered Mr. Gerald Wright, great friend of mine. And then tonight we're remembering your mother, Miss Jawanda Jordan, who was paved the way for me. I mean, she set me up to go into Bethany and be minister of music. And so I appreciate you taking out of your schedule to share with us tonight about your mom, the great things that she had done and the great memories you have of her. And thank you for serving with us every second Sunday, working with the youth choir and helping the worship move forth. Mm-hmm.
My pleasure. I appreciate it.
And so next week, y'all, this is the end of the Pajama Praise for the month of May. Next week, we're going to go all the way down to Killeen, Texas. Our special guest is going to be Brother Albert Joe Reed. I've been working on getting him on for an entire year. Brother Albert Joe Reed, a great musician from Killeen, Texas. He's going to come be our guest next week on Pajama Praise and share his incredible story of how the Lord has guided him through to this time. And so, Sister Crystal, do you have a closing thought you want to give to us?
I just want to encourage anyone that's online to every now and then, if you grew up in church, go and pull up a hymn and sing it. I have started, I don't know what made me start doing this. Back up in February, I guess we were just doing Black History Month, and I was acknowledging a different artist, and I posted a hymn one Sunday. I just went on Pinterest. Pinterest has everything, of course. And I pulled up this hymn, and I, every Sunday now, post a hymn. And I have a friend of mine who said, please don't ever stop. It gives me a memory of my grandfather when he used to sing hymns at church. And this man doesn't go to church anymore, but he remembers the hymns that his grandfather taught and sang in church. So I just want us to go get a hymn. And even if it's not one that you're real familiar with, YouTube has everything. Pull up a hymn, listen to it, sing it, and embrace that in your life. As each day passes, you'll get a different understanding of that. And that's what my mom poured into me, the importance of music and hymns and really just music in general and how it can make such a huge difference in your life.
Right. Well, man, that's a great closing thought. And thank you for sharing that with us. Listen, y'all, thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. Sister Crystal, we have a faithful group that joins us each Monday for Pajama Praise. I see Brother Willie Adams. Brother Willie Adams, you need to get ready to be my guest 1 week on Pajama Praise, because I know you got an incredible story. Sister Donna Franklin, thank you for joining us. That's right. How great thou art, Sister Donna. Sister Rolisa Rogers, thank you for sharing about your mom a couple of weeks ago. Sister Sheila Bryce, listen, man, I have great appreciation for you supporting us every week. Sister Sheila Bryce is one of the great singers, not only of the area, but of the nation. Sister Darlene Richmond, I see you there. Thank you so much for joining us, Darlene. Brother Kenneth Carr, thank you, choir member at Bethany, longtime member at Bethany. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Patrick Bradley, thank you for being with us. You've been with us for a long time. You was one of our special guests. And thank you so much. Mr. Elvis Babers, my longtime friend. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So many people were on with us tonight. Sister Tanya Egler, all the way from Wheaton, Illinois, with the Wheaton College Choir. We got to get y'all back down here, Sister Tanya. Sister Crystal, you need to hear that Wheaton College Choir. They're off the chain. And so many others. Sister Ethel Lewis, I see you there. Brother Sam Britt, thank you so much for being with us earlier. Brother Chris, incredible organist, musician, thank you so much for joining us. Reverend Charles Webb, great choir director and singer and preacher and all of that. Thank you for joining us. I see my cousin there, Miss Tammy Washington, great intercessor, great women's ministry leader. Dr. Kimberly Scales, my classmate, thank you for joining us. Sister Patrice Williams, thank you for being there with us. Mr. Carl Evans, one of the great musicians of the city, thank you for joining us. And so many others. Sister Valerie Campbell, I didn't see you there at first. Thank you for joining us. Mr. James Rice. Oh, man, I'm calling these names. Brother Albert Joe, get ready for next week. You'll be on with us. Patrice Reed with Loving Yourself Inside and Out Ministry. Miss Jackie Foster Kelton, my classmate. Thank you for your support, classmate. Pastor Willie Ted Glenn, thank you for joining us, sir. Listen, so many I can't see. Brother Rayford Forbin is on with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, y'all, we're going to end our program tonight. Again, thank you. It's been a rainy day, but the Lord allowed us to make it through the rain, and thank you, Lord, for the rain. We'll see y'all here next week at 9 o'clock for Pajama Praise. Thank you.